Okay, grade 12, let's try this again for the seventh time now again. We'll be determining this video basically, boys and girls. We'll be looking at the second segment of the parabola, and we'll be determining the equation of a parabola in this type of question in this segment. You'll be able to see that we can only give you, or in most cases, we'll give you three types of questions. And type 1 is basically, we'll ask you to determine the equation of a parabola where we give you the x-intercepts or the roots as well as a point on the graph. So the first thing you do is that you have to click, your mind would have to have alarms going and sirens going that lesson. I'm supposed to use y is equal to a, x minus x1, x minus x2. And the first step you do is that you'd substitute the x-intercepts being x1 and x2 into the correct formula. Step 2 is that you replace a with the coefficient of x squared if given. This barely happens. The examiner's barely that kind, so don't even think you're going to rely on that, buddy. So the best thing you could do is that if it's not given, you would substitute in the point on the graph, because they say that in this type of equation, in this type of question, you'd be given two x-intercepts as well as a point that lies on the graph. The point that lies on the graph you substitute in as x and y, and then you'd solve for a, and you'd multiply the brackets out to essentially then get your answer to be in standard form. In the second type of question that you could find out, or you could receive in the exam, is one where they give you the turning point, which is negative PQ, and a point that lies on the graph. Now, I think we all would use our common sense, given that they're telling me, okay, I've given you the turning point, therefore you're supposed to use the turning point form to get the formula into standard form. That being said, hence I want to say this, and I want to preface this by saying, I want to finish off this, I want to preface this by saying this, listen, I want to say, it's very important for you to learn the theory. I'm not doing the theory for love and games. I'm not doing it because I have nothing better to do with my life. Learn the theory before you attempt questions. Lack of being able to attempt questions speaks to there being nothing with regards to your knowledge of the theory. We first learn the theoretical aspect of the work, then we apply the theoretical aspect of the work when we do that, when we do the exam past paper questions. That being said, so when given the turning point and a point on the graph, what would we do? We'd use, our mind would have alarms going saying that, okay, we're going to use the turning point form. And that would be y is equal to a, x plus p squared plus q. And we'd firstly substitute the coordinates of the turning point and into the formula, into the correct formula. And a pro tip is that remember the sign change. And what do I mean by the sign change? Remember, if you're given the turning point as negative 7, 2, when substituting this back into your formula, y is equal to a x, your p-value would then be plus 7 plus 2. So remember the sign change. In order for us to get our in order for us to get our our turning point, we had to change the sign because our turning point is negative p. So remember this. Okay, remember that. That being said, replace a with the coefficient of x squared if given. That will barely happen. It will barely happen. But if not given, substitute your xy coordinate or a point that lies on the graph to solve for a. Then you multiply your brackets out to get your equation to standard form. And the third type of example, or the third type of question you might receive is one whereby they give you 3 points and none of these points are the turning point, or neither are they x-intercepts. You then have to use y is equal to x squared plus bx plus c. And what's supposed to be ringing in your mind? Simultaneous equations, simultaneous equations, simultaneous equations. So essentially what would happen is you'd identify the point representing the y-intercept. And remember the y-intercept is where x is equal to 0. You'd substitute your y-intercept into y is equal to ax, y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, and solve for c. Now, substitute the other points into the equation and solve simultaneously to determine the values of a and b. That will be shown to you as we move along. Now, notation. These are the types of questions that most of you guys lose marks in because you guys tend to fear or have a lot of anxiety when you see an inequality sign. Now, When f of x is more than 0 in this, as stated here, as stated in this example that I'm looking at currently, when f of x is equal to 0 or is more than 0, what they mean is for which values of x is this graph above the x-axis. And when f of x is less than 0, it means for which values of x, where is this graph below the x-axis, boys and girls? Now, when they give you f of x multiplied by g of x is more than or equal to 0, this is basically where they ask you, where are both graphs above or below the x-axis? Where are they above the x-axis and where are they both below the x-axis at the same time? And then f of x multiplied by g of x is less than or equal to 0. Where is one of the graphs above the x-axis and the other one below the x-axis? Yeah, so where is one above the x-axis and where is one below the x-axis? And then you give me those x values. You'll see as we actually carry on and do more past paper questions, okay? And then from there on, where f of x is more than or equal to g of x, this is basically where f of x is above g of x. For which values of x is f of x above g of x, okay? And then we would have f of x is equal to g of x, and this is basically where f of x and g of x intersect. Where are they equal to each other, boys and girls? Okay. I want us to quickly dive in deep into questions, and I want you to also just bear with me because my Apple Pencil seems to be acting up these days, okay? So we said here in question 4, it says, we're given a graph, f of x is equal to x squared plus q, and it's sketched below. And it says now point A is 2, 0, point B is negative 3, 2.5, and they lie on the graph of G, and point A and C are x-intercepts. Now, I want you to remember something. X-intercepts have the same distance from your turning point. And our turning point would be here. It's on 0. So what does that mean? So from 0, this line is 0. The blue line that I've now highlighted is 0, right? So it's 2 units here. So it's 2 units from 0 to get to that point. A parabola will be symmetrical. Therefore, from here to there, to the blue line, should also be 2 units. As such, point C should be negative 2, 0. If you go according to the logic that I'm using. So therefore, point C is equal to negative 2, 0. Let me just quickly try and fix this, boys and girls. Apologies. Point C is equal to negative 2, 0. Question 4.2. Determine the equation of f. Now, what are we given? They're asking us to determine the equation of a graph. What are we given? We're given the two x-intercepts. So what formula would we be using? We would be using our x-intercept formula. X minus x1. X minus x2. So that being said, x1 can be negative 2. Let's put in negative 2 there by x1. Excuse me, boys and girls. This Apple Pen seems to be working against me today. X minus negative 2. X minus 2 for x2. Okay. Then we plug in a point, this point, point B. So where you see an x, you put in a negative 3, and when you see a y, you put in 2,5. Okay. So we'd have 2.5. Excuse me. You'd have 2,5 is equal to a and we said that x is -3, so we'd have -3 minus -2, -3 minus 2, 2.5 is equal to a multiplied by, this would be -1 if we simplify, multiply by -5, so that would be 5, -1, and then yes, so that would be then, that would then give us 5a 2.5, therefore a is equal to 2.5 divided by 5, let's quickly go back, 2.5 divided by 5, that gives us 0.5, which is a half. A is equal to a half, or 0.5. Therefore, we then go and write y is equal to a half x minus -2 x minus 2. And then what you do is just simplify it further. So this will give me x squared minus 2x plus 2x minus 4, which would then give us y is equal to a half x squared. These would cancel each other out, minus 2. So this would be your answer. Question 4.3 proceeds to say to us, 4.3 proceeds to talk to us and says, write down the range. Remember the range, we said y, the formula for the range, y is an element of q positive infinity when we're smiling, and when we're frowning, y is an element of, y is an element of negative infinity, q when we are frowning. So our a is positive, and we can see the graph has already been given to us as a smiley face, so therefore we're going to be using the smiley face formula. Y is an element of, what is our q value? We can see what is our q value. Is anyone able to give us our q value? Our q value in this case would be our x-intercept. And what would our x-intercept be? When y is, the x-intercept, make x equal to 0. So when x, is equal to 0, y is equal to -2. So therefore our y-intercept would be 0, -2. And remember, our y-intercept in this case is also our turning point. Not every example, but in this example. And therefore, y is an element of from -2 up to positive infinity. In question 4.4, let's quickly proceed to that one. Question 4.4 proceeds to talk about what? Proceeds to talk about now, write down the range of h if h of x, so we're given a new function. So the new function is h of x is equal to negative f of x. So it's negative f of x minus 2. So if it's negative, let's quickly write down, so h of x is equal to, shouldn't forget the negative. Let's write down our f of x. We wrote our f of x, it's here, it's a half x squared minus 2, so it's a half x squared minus 2 minus 2. Therefore, h of x is given to us by saying negative a half x squared plus 2 minus 2. And if we simplify that further, h of x is equal to negative a half x squared, essentially. There we go. So now they want the range of h of x. Now h of x as we've been given h of x is now a frowny face. So we'd be using the formula y is an element of from negative infinity up to q, right? Negative infinity up to q. That being said, what is the value of q? The value of q is the same as the turning point, in this case tp, and our y-intercept are essentially how we would find the value of q. So if y is equal to 0, if to get our y-intercept, x has to be equal to 0. But we could see here, if x is equal to 0, then y is also equal to 0. So therefore our y-intercept, then therefore our range for h of x is y is an element of from negative infinity all to 0 included. And you'd easily get your full marks there. Let's move on to the next type of question. The next type of question, boys and girls, is quick and easy. Let's just quickly try and move as fast as possible. And yeah, let's see. Question 5.1 says, determine the range of g. Let's quickly read the question. It says, the diagram shows that graphs of g of x is equal to ax squared plus q, and f of x is equal to mx plus c. So we can see f of x is actually a straight line graph. G of x is a parabola that has a negative a value because it's frowning. Now r is an x-intercept of g, and t, the point t, which is at 0, 8, is the y-intercept of g. So it's the y-intercept of the parabola. Okay, and it says that p is there's a point p which is at 3, 14 on the parabola, and it says that f of x, the graph of f passes through r and t. So the points of intersection are r and t. Now let's quickly see question 5.1 quickly. Let's quickly answer question 5.1, boys and girls. Question 5.1, boys and girls, is as follows. It says, write down the range of g. Now the range of g, we said the range of g would be y is an element of round bracket negative infinity up to q, right? Yes. And what's the q value here? The q value is 8. So y is an element of, excuse me, boys and girls, let me just quickly get this out here. Y is an element of negative a, negative infinity up to 8. Now 5.2 proceeds to talk to us. And what do we see at 5.2? 5.2 says, determine the values of a and q. Okay, looking at this graph, determine the value of a and q. So what would we do first? Let's see first. We've been given the y-intercept. So let's quickly write out the equation of g of x. G of x is equal to ax squared plus q. We've been given a point t. The point t is 0, 8. Point t is at 0, 8. So let's quickly plug this in and see what happens. So it's a y-intercept. So 8 is equal to a0 squared plus q. We'll therefore be able to see that q is actually equal to 8. We get a mark for that. Then therefore, let's see now what our value for a is. Let's just use a random point on the graph. Let's use point P. Point P is at 3, 14. And easily now that we have the q value, we can easily say g of x is equal to ax squared plus 8. Let's plug in our points. So it's 14 for y. A is 3 squared plus 8. This would give us 6 is equal to 9a. Therefore, divided by 9. Therefore, a would be equal to 2/3. So you get a mark here, you get a mark here, and here you get your 2 marks. Let's move on to question 5.3. 5.3.1. It says to us, it says if the coordinates of r is -2, 0. So if r is -2, 0, use the graph to determine the values of x. Now, the question, I think you guys might not be able to see it properly, so but let me just quickly rewrite it down for you guys. It says yeah, f of x. So where f of x is below, so it says where f of x is less than g of x. And when we interpreted this, boys and girls, we said that when we go back here, when given two functions, when we go back here, we said that if something is greater than another function, it's basically where that function is above that other function. So here, it's where g of x is above f of x. So that being said, where's g of x? G of x is our parabola. Where's the parabola above that the what's it called again? The straight line graph. And we could see it, it's easily here. It's above the straight line graph. Okay, so therefore, x is an element of, not included because there's not a stripe there below the inequality sign, not included. It's an element of, they said r is -2, so it's from -2 where they intersect, and they also intersect at 0. So there we go. And you easily get your low power mode 2 marks. There we go. Then we could quickly tackle this question for us. Okay, let's quickly try tackle question 6.1. Question 6.1, boys and girls, it essentially speaks to finding the equation of these graphs. So let's see what we're given. Okay, let me just quickly move this here. Let's see what we're given. So here we'll see we're given two points. So it's -2, 0 point. That's 1 point we're given. We're given point -2, 0. So it's point -2, 0, 0.1, 0, and point 0, -4. So in this case, boys and girls, I want you to tell me what we're going to be using. What are we going to be using? In this case, we're going to be using the y-intercept form. So y is equal to a x minus x1, x minus x2. What do we do? Plug in our x-intercepts. So where would our x-intercepts be? So our intercepts, so basically x-intercepts, where y is equal to 0. So we'd have x minus 1, and we'd have x minus 2, which could easily be solved and made x plus 2. And then we'd plug in this other point, which is 0, -4. So -4 is equal to a, -4 is equal to a, -4 is equal to a 0 minus 1, 0 plus 2 in this case. And we said that from there on, -4 is equal to a times -2, and therefore a is equal to 2. We'd easily solve, that's how we easily solve such a question. So a is equal to -2. No, a is equal to 2, I mean. So therefore, we then get it into the standard point form, and the standard point form, y is equal to 2x plus 2 x minus 1. Excuse me, boys and girls, I'm just, okay. Y is equal to 2x plus 2 x minus 1. If you're asking me, I just swap these two around, and then from there on, y is equal to 2 multiplied by x squared plus 2x, so it's x squared 2x, x squared 2x, and then we'd have also minus x minus 2. Y is equal to, therefore, 2x squared, 2x squared plus 2x minus 4. That's the equation of the graph, and it does make sense. Yes, does make sense. Okay. Then question 6.2, we look at what we're given when we're asked to look at the equation. So what are we given in this point? This point we're given, this is the turning point, as we could see. The turning point and another point. So we'd use turning point form, which is y is equal to ax plus p squared, x plus p squared plus q. That being said, I want us to then move on to talking about, okay, fine, we've got our turning point and we've got another point. So our turning point is negative 2, 3. But when we plug the negative, that's when we plug the x value, which is the p value, it always changes. It always changes, as I said in the beginning. So therefore, we'd have y is equal to a. It changes the sign. Its sign changes. So it would be a positive 2 squared minus 3. And we could also now plug in this point. And this point, as we know, is 0, 1. So point 0, 1 we plug in. And we'd have 1 here is equal to a 0 plus 2. Excuse me. I made a mistake here. So we'd have a point here. We know that it's 0.01. So therefore, when this point is, it's 0.01, so we know that the y is 1. And y is 1. And x is 0. Yes. Perfect. Therefore, we'd have 4 is equal to 4a, and a is equal to 1. Therefore, we'd have y is equal to 1. X plus p, which is 2 squared, minus 3. From there on, what you do is you just expand the brackets and you'd solve x plus 2, because they wanted it into standard form. That's what the question said. So y is equal to, I apologize again for the Apple Pen working, I guess actually just working against us. So we'd have x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4 minus 3. Y is equal to x squared plus 4x, x squared plus 4x, excuse me, x squared plus 4x plus 1. And that's how you go about it. But boys and girls, please do drop your comments in this comment section below, your questions, and then from there on I'm going to upload more videos where we work through more past papers, and then from there on you guys see how we get the hang. So but the most important thing for you now is for you to go to those notes that I've written down by my hand, wasting my energy. Now let's just hope that this is wasteful expenditure that's gonna work on a positive side for someone. So learn the notes that I've given you first, and then from there on attend past papers. From there on, drop any questions that you might have. If you might have noticed that maybe I might have made a mistake, just let me know, and then I'll double check it, and then from there on, we'll just quickly have a bit of a debate on about it. All the best, boys and girls. Do your best. Study like you never prayed, and pray like you never studied. All the best, guys, and cheers. See you in the next video. Cheers.